Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining today. So, as what we discussed last week, this is focused for Azure fundamentals. This is the AZ 900 exam. What are the people are like joined last week? The aim of that, we wanted to help you guys to prepare yourself for the Azure fundamental exam. It is a basic, and every organization these days are looking for that basic expectation. So it is not only for the technical people, also for non-technical people. It is better to understand what is Azure, what is public cloud, how we can consume, etc. So last week we talked about a few areas which we'll quickly recap. So this is the preparation criteria for sections. What are the sections you will be asked, and how you will be getting this exam questions for each section. So this is the weightages of each section. And as I mentioned, this is not going to be a core technical exam. This is going to be more of like the familiarity, like how much you are familiar with the keywords and the jargons used in the Azure and public cloud or the cloud computing area. So I think we talk about the cloud concept and Azure services yesterday, and some of the Azure services still we need to cover, which we can cover today. So last week we talked about the basics of cloud computing. I think I will skip this for recap. And benefits also we talk about the type of benefits you are getting when you're moving into cloud computing. The key areas like globally available, reliable, elastic, and scalability wise, it is providing the better performance. Also, the cost is the biggest reason these days every companies are moving to cloud because it's a pay as you go model. And another, when it comes to scalability, this is something you need to understand what is scale up and scale out. Scale up means in the same resource, you are expanding your core CPU or the memory usage, memory size. Whereas in scale out, the same set of virtual machine or a resource, you are replicating into multiple. So this also calls as a vertical and horizontal comparison. And then we talk about the capex and operational expenditure topic. Then we talk about type of cloud computing. As we are in the Azure, it's purely fall under public cloud. Majority of public cloud features are available. So public cloud is purely on cloud. You are renting resources from somebody. But whereas in private cloud, it is going to be either your partner or your own organization are setting up the environment and make sure that the environment's available globally. Hybrid cloud, it's pretty much public cloud as well as your on-premises together. It's a hybrid cloud because some of the organization, they didn't want to move the confidential data or any legal reason. They want to keep some of the data within the organization. Or maybe they have some legacy system which they didn't want to move it, but they want to consume the cloud, public cloud functionality. For that reason, they may need a hybrid cloud. This is the commonly used in every organization. Then we talk about last week IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, the comparison, and anything in the blue color are managed by the provider. In this case, Microsoft. Managing the in the IaaS, it is pretty much the infrastructure is managed by Microsoft. The remaining component sitting on the infrastructure is managed by you or your organization. Whereas in PaaS, some of the components like operating system, middleware, runtime is not managed by you, managed by Microsoft. Whereas in SaaS, completely managed by Microsoft, they will be providing you software which is similar to your Outlook or a Gmail concept. But one of the leading product from Microsoft is Office 365, which is effectively used in this world as a digital workplace or a modern workplace. So Office 365, one of the great example for SaaS service. Similar way, you can call out Salesforce, ServiceNow, and probably like other cloud providers who are providing, like even the Zoom, it's a SaaS service. So we also talk about some sample questions to recap your knowledge, whether you're following, where you are missing. To recap this, every section we have small questions. So also we talk about the introduction about the Azure last week, the type of resources available. This is the wider picture of building blocks of the Azure public cloud. You can see here the underlying infrastructure, which is you don't know whether the power, your hardware, your data center, office buildings, etc., power, cooling system, everything is fall under data center infrastructure, which is you don't need to worry about it. But what you will be consuming top of the data center, you will be consuming the compute, which we talk about virtual machines, containers. Those are fall under compute resource. Storage, pretty much anything you create in cloud, you need a storage for majority of resources in Azure. So either you can use blob storage or a queue, files, and disk. Each has their own benefit. For this exam, you need to understand the component high level. You don't need to understand the low level technical, which is higher level of expectation. But once we complete AZ900 for educating everyone, we will be focusing on more in-depth. So I don't want to go into detail today. As I mentioned, like the focus for AZ900 now, as we have these sessions are every week. One of the week we'll talk about specifically on a compute, and we go into detail. So last week we talked about virtual machines versus container. We also talk about networking, data services, the actual data stored in either in the storage or in the database. So this week we are going to talk about some of the key areas which is needed for the exam. So I think slightly we touched this last week. What is region, what is geography, what is availability zone, etc. I think the geography is self-explaining. Like Microsoft has a data center in pretty much everywhere. Maybe this numbers is currently maybe out of date. So this can be expanded and updated. So don't need. Somebody is waiting or anything needed. Can you hear you guys? Okay. So this slide is pretty much giving you the wider Microsoft delivery on the globally. Like you have a 54 regions. Maybe this is out of date. I need to check. This was prepared a long back. Maybe Microsoft increased the regions. So Microsoft globally available. Some of the areas like they're still improving, like in the African region and the South American region, they're improving. Pretty much, if you talk about the top countries who are currently growing on the digital world are currently covered here. It doesn't mean that this South American region people cannot use these services. They can still use it. Whatever the closest region, they get the high performance. That is the only benefit. Otherwise, you could still sitting from somewhere in the North Africa, you can still use all of these services. So they're not going to stop you to use the services. So wherever more demand to provide the customers' need, they are increasing the regions. Some of the regions are still in the development. So region means it could be more than one data center in a particular region, which is in this case North America, sorry, the East and West America. West America is one region, and then you have other side North Central US is another region. So these the blue circles are called as a region. In our UK side, we have a UK South and UK West. So UK South called as a one region. Within that one region, they will have more than one data center. So when you are developing your resource, you need to understand how you wanted to make sure your system is highly available. So in the subsequent sections, we'll talk about what are the um, what are the scenarios we are going to face. So here, other than these regions, like we talk about the geography, we talk about region, and then we have something called availability set and availability zones, which we'll talk about in the subsequent section. So region, pretty much we talk about anything more than one data center contains a region, but within the geography, we can have a more than one region also. And geography, we talk about availability zones. What is availability zone and how this can help us? So availability zones are physically separated location. For example, in UK South is one region, but you can have more than one data center. If you have more than one data center, if you are designing an application, if that application need to provide a high availability means the system always need to be available. In case of we have some power failure in data center one, still the data center two operating. So in this case, I have application which is running in virtual machines, and it also needed a database. So virtual machine and database is my simple two-tier application. If I deploy that application in all the three availability zones, if one availability zone failure, one data center power failure or flooded or whatever the reason this is failure, my application still will be running because my other two regions are still running. Sometimes people ask like, what if both two zones are failure? You can still run with another region. So depend on your requirement, depend on your expectation on the availability, we can multiply the or deploy the resources in various regions. So if I have a scenario where I wanted a 99.99 SLA, then I have to keep minimum more than one availability zone. So if in case this is failure, then my secondary region will pick up. If I have a scenario like I need a 99.999 SLA, which means the whole region failure, I will deploy my one of the copy in another region. So UK South and UK West. Most of the companies these days in UK South, they will be considering as their primary data center, and UK West will be disaster recovery data center. So whatever they're deploying, the primary infrastructure will be running in Azure UK South. In case UK South is failure, then they will recover from the UK West. So that is the concept of high availability. But this slide is mainly talk about availability zone. So you need to understand what availability zone means, and the questions will be coming like what is region, what is availability zone, or maybe they'll ask a scenario, what how you wanted to make sure the application is highly available. Then you may need to say you may use availability zones for making sure the application is highly available. Availability sets, which is in the same data center, your VMs will be published in or placed in multiple physical racks. So for example, here there is a two keywords will be discussed. So update domain and fault domain. So update domains, when the maintenance occurs, the update is sequenced through update domain, which means like if you imagine like you have a three racks of physical servers or the infrastructure sitting in data center, each will be powered by separately. Like the fault domain is managing this complete rack. They have this dedicated powers. For example, if any update is happening, you are deploying a VM and say I want this VM in availability set, which means three copies will be created in this data center. So any one is failure, the remaining two still will be up and running. Also, what kind of failure will come? Because it's testable, we said, and we said like this is highly available. Yes, it is still highly available, but there could be a reason where they need to do a update the software or clean up some activities. So for that reason, they will be going with any update will happen by sequence. So in case your VMs are in availability set in 3 copies, this will go one by one. So by the time the first complete, second and third will be still running. So you don't need to worry about your application downtime. The application will still be up and running. So if you wanted application 99.9, then you need to have availability set minimum. So, if you want a 99.99, then you need to have it in the availability zone. If you wanted 99.99959 SLA, then you need to keep it in the cross region. So that we will talk about later. That is why these concepts are useful, like availability zone, availability sets, regions. So then we need to understand what is SLA. This is more of like a service level agreement. Any service you consume, that service Microsoft will be offering guaranteed SLA. So when they say guaranteed SLA, means you have to make sure you are understanding this SLA when you are consuming the product. For example, here 99, some of the services they may be offering only 99%, which means yearly 3.65 days you are losing. But if your business can afford this loss, then no issues. You can still go with this kind of SLA services. But whereas you wanted to go with the minimal downtime, if you see the least one, 5.26 minutes, this is the lowest you can lose in the complete year. So if you want a cross region, like UK South and UK West, you have a setup, then you will be getting 99.99 SLA. Then we'll talk about the composing SLAs across services. What this mean, like, okay, in the previous slide, we talk about Microsoft is offering SLAs for each services, whereas one service is offering 99 point and another service is offering only 99. Then what is my overall SLA? That should be calculation where they will be calculating. In this example of web app 99.95 offering, but SQL is offering 99.99, then the calculation they will be considering for composite SLA, which is 99.94%. So that we need to understand. So maybe composition SLAs will be asked in the question. If maybe they'll ask like resource 1 is offering this, resource 2 offering this, then what will be your SLAs, etc. The next topic we are going to talk about resource group. What is resource group? Resource groups are management layer. This will be helping your resources to more than one resource, or one resource can be grouped as a resource group. So if I take example of I think we are talking about frequently 2-tier architecture, right? So because that is the basic web application. Either you have one web front end and you have one backend. So web front end layer could be in the virtual machine. Backend layer could be in the SQL Server. So or it could be like a web front end will be Azure App Service website, and then the Azure SQL Server in the backend. So 2 resources you have. So these resources, if you wanted to understand what are the resources used for this particular application, it is very hard to go and find out how many resources I'm using for this application. So Microsoft is giving you the concept called resource group. You can use this to control your deployment, control your cost, control your DevOps activities. So also, like if you want to apply some policies, you can still apply a policy by the resource group, which can be inherited for all of the resources. So in this concept, like I have virtual machine and I have the network, and I need a storage, and I also have some app services and databases. So if I have all the resources for a particular service, I can group everything into one resource group name. That is what you need to understand what this resource group means. In the next slide, we talk about resource manager. What is resource manager? This is more of like a management layer, which helps you to deploy your component. So if you are using a Azure portal for deploying any component, how that works. Sometime human can make error, right? So when we create resources or application through Azure portal, we may make a mistake. So to avoid that kind of mistake, obviously the automation is the workaround. So to do the automation, what are the other tool sets are available? So Azure Resource Manager is the key underlying management layer, which helps us to deploy resources or control the resources. So you can use Azure portal to deploy any resources that can indirectly. Azure portals are using the underlying management layer of Azure Resource Manager. If you're using your Azure PowerShell to deploy any resources or activate any controls, you will be using Azure PowerShell that will be accessed via SDK. So the SDK is the one you will be installing in your local. Using the PowerShell, you will be deploying, which will eventually call the Azure Resource Management layer to interact with the Azure resources. So this is probably like you can do deploy application, you can organize resources, and you can control resources through Azure Resource Manager. So there will be a question: what is the need of Azure Resource Manager? Maybe you need to understand these concepts. Then the next topic is Azure Marketplace. Azure Marketplace, it's nothing but like it's a self-explaining, right? There is a marketplace where we can go and buy anything what we wanted. In the example of iPhone or Android phones, you have the App Store. These apps are developed by someone for the end users need, and they published via app stores. In the iOS, they have the iOS App Store where they deploy. But deploy, Apple will control what kind of basics they are checking for each apps. So similar that Microsoft is helping other organizations who develop a product, who develop a controls, which can be consumed by the end companies or end users on the Azure resources. For example, somebody developed or I need to develop a web application which needed to interact with the Salesforce or a SAP. So I need a connector. Instead of you develop your own connector, you can go to the marketplace. There will be a connector available in the marketplace which you can consume. But how you can trust this? The trust is shared between Microsoft as well as Salesforce, because this is who authorized this, who is actually developed this. So you need to make sure who is the publisher of these apps. That's also you need to consider. But the exam wise, they will be talking about what is marketplace, why you are using, how we can get the benefit of marketplace. So short one, like the previous sessions, we have a small questions for everyone. You can probably take a couple of minutes to go through this, and if you have any questions, you can unmute and ask these questions.